Welcome, everyone, to Spirit Rock. It's just an honor and a privilege to see you all here today. On behalf of the teachers and the staff, I want to welcome you to the Great Hall at Spirit Rock, which is located, in the San Geronimo Valley in West Marin, in California, in unceded Miwok territory. We name the history of this beloved place as a gesture of respect towards the indigenous residents of the colonized land we now call home. In addition to those in the room, we have many visitors on Zoom, and they're in many states across the country, as well as countries across the world. And we celebrate the diversity of all these people in our Sangha. So regardless of color, culture, gender, orientations, ages, and life experiences, we welcome you here and invite you to fully take your place in our Sangha. So now, all I want to do is to remind you to please turn off your cell phones. And without further ado, I would like to welcome Nina Wise.
I don't know about you all. I haven't been here for a while. Have you? It's like, I keep thinking it's like Rip Van Winkle time. You know, you fall asleep under a tree and then you wake up and you're the same, but nothing else is, and you're not sure you are the same either. So I just want to thank Romy she's been such a dedicated worker here for so long, and all the volunteers and staff who have helped put this together, and all the teachers and presenters who are here today. Welcome, everybody. What an incredibly complex moment this is to come together. And we have the honor and privilege today to celebrate and honor our beloved Wes Nisker, and he's going to stand up. We're going to wave at Wes. So, you'll have more opportunity for that during the evening. So as most of you know, Wes was a radio journalist, a Dharma teacher, a performance artist, a raconteur, a humorist, an author, and just kind of an all-around fabulous human being. And what a gift that we have him in our midst and have for so many decades, and have been able to receive his teachings and his humor and his guidance and his support. Today, during the next couple of hours, we will have talks, performances, songs, music, dances, and video clips. So we'll go through a whole array of really great experiences together. What else? And his daughter Rose will be here. She's going to be starting off this afternoon, and there will be a 10-minute break for your bio needs. If you need to have a bio break before the bio break, you're welcome to go in and out of the hall at your leisure, but just be quiet so that, you know, we can keep the focus up here. Thank you all for coming. Yay, here we are. Rose Nisker.
Thank you, Nina, for that beautiful introduction. And oh my gosh, all these faces and feeling the presence of everyone online is just making me so happy. And we wanted to start off with something that's become kind of a tradition, I guess, at some of our Dharma gatherings, and that is a Balinese welcome dance. We've done this a number of times here at Spirit Rock. Way back in the day when Thich Nhat Hanh first visited Green Gulch, this was something that we included in the welcome to him. I was just a little kid. So I'm very, very happy to be bringing it forward today in this celebration. I also want to mention that playing alongside me today is my sweetheart, Patty Sandino. And here with me also is my dear, dear dance sister, Amiko Saraswati Susilo. And in a Balinese context, this would be something that might be performed at a temple ceremony as a way to welcome the people and the spirits and the gods. So we offer it in a similar way today, just to welcome all of you here, to bring those of you online in the room with us, and also to welcome the creatures and beings of this land, and just to welcome whatever's in your heart today, whatever you're bringing to this celebration. So thank you so much for being here, and welcome.
That made me smile. How great was that? This little, oh my God, that was so great. it feels like it's welcoming us not only to a place, but to our bodies, right? You start feeling like you can do that too, even though you can't possibly do that. So our next presenter is Jack Kornfield. Most of you know who he is. I won't go on and on, although I could. But what's lovely to hold in mind is that Jack and Wes have known each other for decades. They've traveled the world together. They boogie boarded together. They've taught together. And they have accompanied each other through many moments of grief and gladness throughout decades and decades. Welcome, Jack.
This is maybe the first or second time I've been with a group of people in this room in a few years, as you said, like Rip Van Winkle, Nina, and it's fantastic to see you all. And all the more so because it really feels like family, true Dharma family. And I'm immensely grateful to Spirit Rock and the staff and everyone who's been part of this for so long. That we get to be here at this time, and that we also get to honor Wes and the things that we care about. So before I say anything more other than expressing gratitude that you all came and that we're together, let's do a micro meditation. Remember how to do that? You know, you're all so expert. A minute or two will probably serve, right, for your enlightenment, but let yourself settle. Maybe take 2 or 3 long breaths as your eyes close. And with each long breath, let go whatever wants to be let go of. Let go of whatever would allow you to be here more present with a quiet mind and an open heart just now. Add a little half smile to your lips. And you rest in the reality of the present with mindful, loving awareness. This breath, this body, this heart and mind, arising and passing, existing in the field of loving awareness. Relax into it. Trust it. It is your home. So now that we got the enlightenment stuff out of the way, let's continue. It is an honor to be with you, my beloved, dear heart Dharma friend, Wes. I love this man. And we have known each other for close to half a century. And now, of course, everything is a mystery, all the more so, Wes, black hair. I went to visit him and there was black hair among this sea of what he calls affectionately the grannies at the place where he lives. And of course, the grannies are all eyeing the black-haired guy with some interest, as a matter of fact. Wherever he goes, people love him because he's unfailingly kind. And that's the reality of this human being. So Wes's body is 80 years old, and like the Buddha in his last year, who was 80, just your age, and said, my body's like an old cart bound together with straps and thongs falling apart. That was the Buddha's description. You get it, right? And yes, I remember talking to Ajahn Chah when he was old and pretty sick, and I said to him as a young man, well, you always taught us about old age, sickness, and death. He paused and stared at me and said, yeah, don't say that so lightly. You know, it's one thing to say at that age. And there you are, you know, you are living in a semi-assisted living place. You're losing your memory somewhat. Can we talk about this? We're Buddhists. We talk about this stuff, right? We all know our bodies go through changes, that it's not unique to someone, it's us who will age. And we'll all have it in our own way, in our own practice. And so we get to hold hands together as we do this, our community. And maybe more than anything else, it's that coming together and say, we're with each other as we do this, as this great turning of lives, especially our generation, Wesley, which is sort of turning off the map somehow that we know. And yet, in your song about smile like the Buddha, you say, smile like the Buddha, make it a little bit wry, you know, just that, here we are, isn't this amazing that we're here together? We've been close friends since, I think, early 1970s. And when I first came to San Francisco, in the early days, I read in the San Francisco Chronicle their annual list of the 10 most influential people in the Bay Area. You know, there was the mayor, I think it was before Willie Brown, and there was, you know, whoever was the senator, and there was Scoop among the 10 most influential people. Remember that, Wes? We had our day. We had our day, right? And then you say, how the hell did this happen? How did he get out of Norfolk, Nebraska, with the circuit rabbi, Rabbi Fallick, coming in the bus to his house to give him his bar mitzvah portion and him running away so people wouldn't see, you know? How did he become this amazing coyote newscaster, Dharma songster, and in a funny way, with a kind of humility, become a prophet? You know, because he was there before Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert were telling the truth on the news. He was doing, which is why he was so celebrated. You'd tune in and Wes would say, here's what's actually happening. Forget that so-called, what did our ex-president call the media? I won't even say it, but anyway, Wes was the real media. Because he is playful, he's playfully interested and curious and open-minded and open-hearted, as much as he is kind, he was able to get the scoop everywhere. People trusted him. And I remember reading about how you interviewed one of the survivors who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and saying things like, well, what was it like being in the air? You know, how was it when you hit? Questions we all would want to ask, but it was very genuine, you know, or dropping acid with Tim Leary as you drove across the Bay Bridge to interview him on the radio and saying, well, if I'm with Tim Leary, why wouldn't I, you know? or in India, when we were together interviewing the young Dalai Lama, when we went over to the temple and said, we want to see the Dalai Lama, they said, what time do you want to come? Oh, this afternoon, sure. And then he said to us, after we asked him some questions, we were about to leave, and it was so sweet. And then he looks at us and he said, don't you want to take my picture? You give me your camera, I'll give it to my attendant, and we can all be in it together. It's been on my refrigerator. It was for like a decade, Wes and I, and two other people we were there together with. He was there at the founding of the Western Insight meditation movement, together with Sharon Salzberg and Joseph Goldstein and Danny Goleman and Ram Dass and so forth, at the first courses of Goenka and Bodh Gaya, in the early 1970s, all of whom are still his friends. He raised Rose in a hippie commune, and you can see it still. He should be so proud. It's great. Yeah, she's turned out so well. And God, is he funny, He talked about being a cross in the old days between a hippie and a yuppie. He named himself a huppie. He said, don't worry, be huppie, was his. And I remember asking, Trudy and I were together with him and saying these bon mots and these jokes and these witticisms, they come so quickly. Do you think about it? And he said, no, it's kind of like having Tourette's. It just blurts out of this amazing mind in these witty, funny, charming, beautiful ways. Instead of you are what you eat, he said, more accurately, you are what you don't poop. You gotta hand it to him. He analyzes the human situation and then turns it around in this amazing way so that we can see it. The beats were your inspiration. I know that, reading about what Kerouac said and reading Walt Whitman, Cheer Up, where Whitman said, cheer up, slaves, and horrify the foreign despots, and don't spend your life just producing and consuming all that crap that you don't need anyway. I see a vision of a great rucksack revolution, thousands, millions of young Americans wandering around, going up to the mountains to pray, making children laugh and old men glad, making young girls happy and old girls happier, all of them Zen lunatics who go about writing poems that happen to appear in their heads for no reason, also by being kind and also by strange, unexpected acts, keep giving visions of eternal freedom to everybody and to all living creatures. How's that, Wesley? We traveled, as Nina mentioned. We traveled to Bali and hung out with shamans and did writers' retreat there. We traveled on the Turkish coast, and there was Wes in this ancient huge Greek amphitheater declaiming, if you don't like the news, go out and make your own, to all the Greek followers, We traveled to India, of course, all over the US, via Cetus and places like that, and always, you can see it in the Gratitude Hut, the images in India of Wes riding elephant back with James Barras and Joseph Goldstein and so forth on his way to ordination under the Bodhi tree. And in India, we talked with the Dalai Lama, we talked with Mother Teresa. We actually pissed her off, which is a whole other story. It takes a lot to piss her off, but we did it, We talked to the president of India, remember that, Wes? But the thing that I remember, because he was doing his man on the street, was we were riding in a man-pulled rickshaw in Calcutta. Calcutta was one of the last urban areas with its cobblestone streets that had people who pulled the rickshaw between these two long poles. And there was this guy, he told us he was 65 years old, barefoot, calloused on the cobblestone streets. And we asked how much he worked. He said, I work every day because I support 14 people. And Wes did this whole interview with him. And the thing that was so beautiful is he treated the rickshaw puller and the Dalai Lama and Mother Teresa and the various people all with the same curiosity and kindness and interest. And it made for incredible radio and news, but more than that, it made for heartful radio and heartful news in this beautiful way. Always interested and always kind. He's a nature lover who rewrote evolution in a song, a prescient visionary who did his musical so-called comedy, The Empire Strikes Out, decades ago, that had, as a prophet, it had humor and art and theater and dharma, and it showed what we're experiencing now, the troubles with climate and global warming and refugees around the world and the call for racial and economic justice, all in there. He saw all of that, and then he turned it into song and art and music and said, wake up, my fellow, whatever you are. What are we, Wesley? Beings, we'll call us. What? Mammals. Wake up, fellow mammals, he says. That's us. You said in your teachings and in your writings that from early on you were looking for home. So I'd like to ask you to stand up, walker or not, and come up to the front here just a little bit. Can someone help him if he needs it? He's a little shaky, but then again, that's impermanence. And when you come up here, turn around so you can see all the other mammals in the room with you. Right there is good. Turn around. Oh yeah, you make your bow to the Buddha, Kuan Yin, all of that. Now look at all these mammals behind you and stand there. Okay, so those of you who have taught with Wes, please stand up. Thank you. Those of you who have worked with Wes, please stand up. Those of you who've studied with Wes, please stand up. Those of you who are moved by Wes, please stand up. Those of you who are friends with Wes, please stand up. And now I'd like you to gaze at him, and Wes, to you to look back and do some metta practice, some loving kindness as you gaze at this man who's really offered so much in this miraculous and weird and completely wonderful and unique. No one ever, all the other Dharma teachers, you could sort of substitute one, Jack, Sharon, Joseph, whatever, but they're sort of the same. Nobody ever in the universe even close to this being, right? The most unique. So I want you to gaze at him. He's carried by love of truth, and by wonder and awe. That's what he wanted you to all see, this sense of wonder and mystery. And now direct your metta. Shower him with love. Wesley, may you be safe. May you be protected. May you be held by the love of all of these beings, all these mammals who are with you on this amazing earth. May you be held by the Dharma, along with Nina Wise right now. Yeah, feel the goodness that you have shared with so many, and let it come in, beam it to him, surround him. Touch your body, your heart, your spirit, every part of you. You've given so much love in so many ways, and so much wit and so much heart. And we're with you. We are with you. We're with you in love. thank you all, and especially thank you, my dear brother.
As Jack said, Wes was a renowned radio journalist and then traveled the world as a spiritual seeker, along with all the people that Jack mentioned, Sharon and Joseph and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he never gave up his love of performance and storytelling. So he started doing these, he wrote books, but he also started doing these amazing performance works. And luckily right now we have clips of them. So we get to watch Wes on stage doing his extraordinary work.
And if we see ourselves in the story of evolution, our family increases a millionfold. Richard Dawkins says, if you had a picture of your great-grandfather, 150 million great-grandfathers back, which everybody has, you would have a picture of a fish. Your ancestors were scaly. If we see ourselves in the story of evolution, we realize that we are connected to everything that's ever lived through the miracle molecule of DNA, composed of 4 chemical compounds, and depending on how it's arranged in these long strings of coded information, the DNA will contribute to the growth of a giant sequoia or an ant or a rose or a human being. It's magical substance. Deoxyribonucleic acid, much too cold a term for this substance that separates life from non-life. I propose a new acronym. Please join me. Every time you see or hear the letters DNA, think divine natural abundance. Divine natural abundance. Your DNA is almost 100% identical to the DNA of the person sitting next to you. The instructions for building and maintaining you are almost exactly the same as the instructions for building and maintaining me and the Dalai Lama and House Speaker John Boehner and Oprah and Britney Spears. That our individual differences are just a thin coat of paint over the basic human design. We share over 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees, nearly 90% with mice, nearly 70% with worms, nearly 50% with yeast. So if we declare ourselves divine, is not the slime also divine? And if not, where do we draw the line? Who gets a soul? There's a great t-shirt put out by the biology department at UC Santa Cruz. It says, we share 25% of our DNA with bananas. Get over yourself.
One scientist estimates the universe to be 10 billion trillion cubic light years large. Sound about right? Approximately, okay. But this universe that we're living in is such a trickster. The scientists say the universe is filled with the gas helium. Does that mean my voice is an octave lower than it sounds? Could it be that none of us have ever heard our true voices? And it looks like there's a lot of stuff here, but there's hardly any stuff here at all. Because everything in this universe that we can perceive is made out of atoms. And atoms are 99.999% empty space. You take the nucleus of an atom, blow it up millions of times, till it's the size of a grain of sand. The electron going around that nucleus will be the size of a dust mote, and it'll be a half a mile away. There's hardly any matter to matter. So why don't I just fall through the floor and through the earth? This is a magic act. And if your body's made of atoms, and atoms are mostly empty space, what is holding your clothes on? Not only does the emperor have no clothes, the clothes hardly have any emperor. We're like optical illusions to each other. As they say in Zen, things are not what they seem, nor are they otherwise. We could embrace ourselves as part of the life of this planet. What if we could embrace our identity as Earthlings? We are made of all natural earth ingredients. Your bones are made of calcium, magnesium, phosphates, silicates, basically the clay of earth molded into your shape. Most of our bodies are liquid, and most of that liquid has the chemical consistency of the oceans. We sweat and cry seawater. We're not just on the earth, we're of the earth. We're like earth sprouts that gain a lot of mobility, you know? We're earth walking on earth, sitting on earth. The traffic report is over. You are now listening to K-Now Radio, and this is Scoop Nisker with another commentary on the way it is, the way it was, the way it will be. Friends, Earthlings, baby boomers, members of the X, Y, and Z generations, all of you born in the last half century or so, lend me your pierced ears. I've come to praise your generations, not to bury them. That will happen later, and all too soon. One problem for recent generations is that the people who lived through the Great Depression and World War II now call themselves the greatest generation, and that leaves you with an impossible act to follow. And they accuse you of being spoiled, being slackers, having it too easy. But you can lay claims to your own Great Depressions and wars with enemies that are more personal, elusive, and existential. You were born into a time of transition, a time when the old stories are too old to have meaning and the new ones too new, a time when salvation keeps changing its brand name. You've lived through so many revolutions, sexual, political, scientific, and technological, that your heads are now permanently spinning. As a result, those born in the last half century might collectively be called the confused generations. And there are very good reasons for your confusion. Consider that you grew up in a culture that is doubting its own mythology. Way back in 1966, Time magazine ran a cover story entitled, "Is God Dead?" And while the editors at Time chose not to answer the question, the fact that it was raised didn't bode well for the deity. It seems that even if God isn't dead, he may be having a midlife crisis. Consider that recent generations grew up reading about the theory of relativity in school, and even though you still don't have a clue what it means, it entered your culture as the mantra, "It's all relative." So what is real and true and good is anybody's guess. And that led to the ethics of do your own thing, and to the recent ultimate one-word summation of relativity, whatever. Consider that you lived all your lives with some kind of doom hanging over your heads, either nuclear winter or global warming. You lived through a time when technology in all of its forms, A-bombs, birth control pills, automobiles and airplanes, radios, movies, television and computers were driving and flying and seducing you far away from your homes toward a global village that has no center and no traditions. You grew up in a world of homelessness and uncertainty, and all the king's horses and all the president's men couldn't put it together again. Some of you who grew up in this time have since been wandering through the wreckage, trying to find some spiritual refuge, political sanity, or a mythology that fit the curve of your soul. The search led some of you to a faith in astrology, or Hindu elephant gods, or anarchist politics, or to a belief in rock and roll. So here's to your brave and adventuring spirit. This is Scoop Nisker on K-Now Radio, reminding you to keep questioning authority and questioning reality. And if you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own.
So brilliant, so funny. Oh, what a treat to watch. And Wes just kept putting out so many, still does. Such a treat to have that level of intelligent, wise entertainment. Woof, yum. Our next presenter is Vinny Ferraro. He's been teaching with Wes for over 20 years. And Vinny brings his own kind of original eye and heart to his teaching. And he and Wes have partnered together in that endeavor for a long time. Vinny.
What's up, bro? I remember first coming on this land. And one of the first times I spent, the day here was after Ram Dass's, for his benefit. I was following Stephen around, and Stephen Levine, and he walked into a portal and I was just gonna go everywhere he went. So I followed him. He came walking out, I walk in, and I'm looking at the wall, and I can't believe it. He had wrote, "Pee here now." I think, as an outsider, as a transplant from another world, I think, Wes, you were my easiest point of contact. I recognized that's an original Sidewinder right there. He's not like the others. Yeah, so, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to get to say a few words to my friend, and I'm sure the greatest gift I can offer you today is my brevity. It's good. So, Wes has asked me and invited me to teach alongside him. That meant the world to me, to just be invited, And so we got a chance to do a bunch of retreats together. And I was thinking about all the times that we spent. I was trying to go through the memories. I was like, what could I share? I could share that talk. No, that's totally inappropriate. Okay, how about, and I recollected, and I hadn't really noticed it so clearly, but I can't remember you ever saying a disparaging comment about anybody. Not once, not never. And that's really inspiring, And so I go to my intention of like, okay, well, what do I really want to convey to my friend and to the people that love him, I guess I had a long history of taking myself pretty seriously, and he cured me of that a little bit. Yeah, he would always say, he would see me struggling with that, the subtle violence of self-improvement, and he would just be like, you're not your fault. It's not that serious, And that gave me a certain kind of permission, a certain kind of freedom. The gentleness that he guides with, and not just with humor, but with real wisdom. When I go into that intention, I just want you to reflect for a moment about any moment that he's brought a smile to your heart. Maybe it was something he wrote, or a teaching moment, or a moment at the tea bar, but just reflect for a moment about something that you love about our friend. And you feel the gentleness. Sometimes I'll walk by a hill and I'll see the grass blowing, or I'll catch the stars. And I'll know that the shoulders that I'm standing on are yours, bro.
Barbara Gates will come up next and read a poem. Wes lived at Harwood House in Oakland. I know many of you know about that place. It was a commune, I guess we call those places. And Wes always liked living with friends. And I understand that feeling, right? In this world that's become so isolated, he always loved living with people and having people around. And so they gave teachings there and also had a hot tub. So while they were in the hot tub together after the meditation teachings, there should be one here. Can you imagine after, yeah, I won't go into that. Wes said, let's start a meditation journal, magazine. And they began Inquiring Mind together and interviewed everybody. And we had that great Buddhist journal for decades. Barbara Gates and Wes, thank you for that. And come on up.
Yeah, 31 years of Inquiring Mind. And he brought that smile on my heart and laughter every day. I'm honored to be reading a poem that Wes wrote in, I think it was 2006, Why I Meditate, parentheses, after Allen Ginsberg, close parentheses. Wes loved Allen Ginsberg, and as Jack indicated, and as Wes often said, I came to San Francisco for the beats, but I was assigned to the hippies. Yeah. But he still loved the beats, and we did interview Gary Snyder a number of times. We had, Ann Waldman, many of the beats. But Wes interviewed Allen Ginsberg for one of the earliest issues of the journal. And it was about a trip that Allen took with Gary Snyder to China. And they were kind of bringing Buddhism back to China, and they taught people to meditate. And it was a great article. Okay, let me read the poem. Okay. I meditate because I suffer. I suffer, therefore I am. I am, therefore I suffer. I meditate because there are so many other things to do. I meditate because when I was younger, it was all the rage. I meditate because Siddhartha Gautama, Bodhidharma, Marco Polo, the British Raj, Carl Jung, Alan Watts, Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Alfred E. Newman, et al. I meditate because evolution gave me a big brain, but it didn't come with an instruction manual. I meditate because I have all the information I need. I meditate because the largest colonies of living beings, the coral reefs, are dying. I meditate because I want to touch deep time where the history of humanity can be seen as just an evolutionary adjustment period. I meditate because life is too short and sitting slows it down. I meditate because life is too long and I need an occasional break. I meditate because I want to experience the world as Rumi did, or Walt Whitman, or as Mary Oliver does. I meditate because now I know that enlightenment doesn't exist, so I can relax. I meditate because of the Dalai Lama's laugh. I meditate because there are too many advertisements in my head, and I'm erasing all but the very best of them. I meditate because the physicists say there may be 11 dimensions to reality, and I want to get a peek into a few more of them. I meditate because I've discovered that my mind is a great toy and fun to play with. I meditate because I want to remember that I'm perfectly human. Sometimes I meditate because my heart is breaking. Sometimes I meditate so that my heart will break. I meditate because a Vedanta master once told me that in Hindi, my name, Nisker, means non-doer. I meditate because I'm growing old and want to become more comfortable with emptiness. I meditate because I think Robert Thurman was right to call it an evolutionary sport. And I want to be on the home team. I meditate because I'm composed of 100 trillion cells. And from time to time, I need to reassure them that we're all in this together. I meditate because it's such a relief to spend time ignoring myself. I meditate because my country spends more money on weapons than all other nations in the world combined. If I had more courage, I'd probably immolate myself. I meditate because I want to discover the fifth Brahma Vihara, the divine abode of awe. And then I'll go down in history as a great spiritual adept. I meditate because I'm building myself a bigger and better perspective. And occasionally, I need a new window.
So let's take a moment and give Wes and Barbara a round of applause for all those years of editing The Inquiring Mind. Yeah. There's so much media, so much we can read, so much input, and these like treasure troves of wisdom and compassion and intelligence and truth are becoming more and more rare. And you can still read The Inquiring Mind online, so do give it a look. It's just full of extraordinary interviews, articles, poetry, all of that. Okay, so we have a couple more events before the break. And as you've heard already, Wes and Joseph Goldstein have been good friends for a long, long time. Wes was there at the beginning of it all. And they, just like with Jack, Wes and Joseph spent a lot of time together traveling the world and going to teachings and teaching together and meditating together and hanging out together and skiing together. So Joseph will be with us via video to give his tribute.
Hey, Wesley. Happy birthday. Thinking of you on this occasion brought back so many memories of our life together, looking back over a really long time. We've shared a lot of experiences over the years. I was thinking at first, of our time in India, practicing with the Goenka in Bodh Gaya, and us sneaking off in between sittings to smoke bidis in Bidi Alley. And then when we all came back from India, and this was, I think in '74, planning together with Mudita and Robert and Juna for that first month-long in Sequoia National Forest. I remember sitting around your kitchen. You were living someplace in San Francisco at the time, and just planning for this inaugural retreat, which was really quite amazing, that it kind of set the stage for the whole unfolding, of the teaching of Vipassana in this country. It was really a seminal moment. And then I was thinking about the time we were up in Tahoe and driving back together. And in the drive back, we started talking about the possibility of creating a journal, emphasizing, the insight tradition of Vipassana. And it's out of that conversation that you and Barbara created The Inquiring Mind, which was this wonderful journal serving the Dharma community for so many years. And then thinking about all the trips we did together. There were quite a few rafting trips and hiking trips in the mountains, and remember one in Lassen National Park. And also, as I was recalling all this, I was remembering one of the rafting trips. So we were on the river. I think it was someplace in Idaho or someplace around there, maybe Oregon. And I had gotten into a little inflatable kayak, which they had brought along for people to play around with, next to the bigger rafts that we were all in. And I remember being in this little inflatable kayak, and the guide shouts out to me, "Watch out for the hole." Of course, I had no idea what a hole in a river meant. I quickly found out as my little kayak tumbled over a rock into a little whirlpool vortex of water, and I was pulled under. But happily, we were all wearing life vests, and the life vest pushed me back up to the surface. It was quite a moment, although it provided a great metaphor for mindfulness. Because afterwards, I was just thinking about, how we can get caught up in the vortex of our mind stories, all the dramas we create, and then how mindfulness serves as that life vest, just pulling us out of the whirlpool into some greater wisdom, greater clarity. And I'm sure you remember also our trip to Russia, which itself was quite an extraordinary adventure. And I remember how much you loved being there and were even considering moving as you were wandering around Red Square. I know you really weren't considering moving. It was quite intense, actually, the whole trip. But it was wonderful sharing that together as well. And then, in my many trips out to Berkeley and visiting with the whole California gang, and our endless discussions about rebirth. Hours and hours and hours with me trying to convince you of the truth of it. Of course, since I didn't really have proof of it, I don't think it made much of an impression. But maybe we'll meet someplace next life and I can say, see, it's really true. And then just enjoying all the years of your immense creativity, in your books and your songs. And I know for a long time you were trying to help my singing career along, but I think I must have been your greatest disappointment in that regard. But I had a lot of fun anyway in doing it. And just part of your whole creative side has always been your great love of poetry. And in recent years, I've really begun to appreciate that more and more. Remember, especially early on, years ago, how often you would speak about the great haiku poet Isa. And quite recently, for myself, I've really gotten into his haiku poems and appreciating just the great warmth and humanity, in the midst of all the struggles of his own life. So that was a great introduction, to a whole world of poetry. Perhaps most amazing of all in this great journey of life together was just how you have managed to keep that luxurious head of hair of yours. I'm quite envious, but there it is. So again, just wanted to wish you a happy birthday, 80, impressive. And I hope we'll still have many more years to share just whatever ongoing adventures and times together present themselves. Again, many good wishes on this great milestone. Sending you lots of love.
Many of us were talking up in the kind of teacher's lounge up there before this started, how perplexing it is to be here and under these circumstances and be looking back at our lives, not just at Wes's lives, but our lives with Wes, and how time flies and expands and condenses and stretches, and here we are. So the last event before the break will be Rose Nisker talking about her dad.
Is that okay? Yeah, I'll just squat the whole time I'm up here. There we go. Okay. I changed after the dance, and then I was thinking, oh no, what if I repeat something someone said? And then I realized, oh, you're my dad. I don't think anyone else is gonna say the same thing. So. Anyway, I wanted to just start with a little piece of wisdom that I just found in my stuff a couple nights ago. This is a postcard that my dad sent me when I was a freshman at UCLA. It's addressed to me at Sproul Dorm, for anyone who went to UCLA. And on the front, of course, as has been talked about, is one of his faves, Jack Kerouac. And on the back, he has a Jack Kerouac quote here. He's written out, "Who knows, by God, but that the universe is not one vast sea of compassion, actually, the veritable holy honey beneath all this show of personality and cruelty. My dear daughter, we must learn to love the world in spite of the world. It is our most important lesson and our only salvation. Much, much love, Dad. P.S. Don't forget to schedule your dental cleaning next month. They book up very far in advance." So there it is. That's pretty much it. But yes, over the years, on occasion, I have gotten asked, what was it like to grow up with this Dharma trickster as my dad? And, it's kind of hard to gauge, as it is for all of us. You kind of know what you know. But there's a few things that maybe stand out as kind of unique. As I was growing up, not only did my dad help me develop my sense of self, he helped me develop my sense of no self. But all right, a little homage to the Wes Nisker Borscht Belt Dharma humor. But yeah, to his credit, he never pushed mindfulness or meditation onto me, which is probably why I was somewhat interested in it growing up. And, the way he was expressing it with humor and songs, even as a kid, it was pretty compelling. So, in fact, my dad still has a postcard from me that I sent him when I was 8 years old. I had just visited Borobudur, the incredible 9th century Buddhist monument in Java, with my mom, Mudita. I get it from both sides, obviously. Most of you know that. And on the front of the postcard is a picture of Borobudur, and on the back, in my scraggly kid handwriting, it says, "Dear Daddy, I know what I want to be when I grow up," and then in giant letters, Buddha. So you can imagine how delighted he was to get that postcard. I do think it was kind of the height of my spiritual aspirations, and the next month I was on to wanting to be an architect and then a pop star, and But he was so supportive of all of my endeavors, a lot of wacky endeavors. I did notice, though, a little more enthusiasm around anything that involved poetry or subversive political action. So those were the values. But the threads of the Dharma continued along, and when I was 13 years old, I completed the rite of passage of our people, the Buish people, the Jubus. And instead of having a bat mitzvah, I went out to Green Gulch for 2 weeks of Zen practice. And looking back, I don't really know what my preteen self was thinking. On the one hand, you have something that culminates in a giant party with all your friends and lots of presents. And on the other hand, you have waking up at 4 a.m. for Zen monasticism. And also at that point, you really want to try and fit in, and that did not help my cause for doing that. But as I was thinking about waking up at 4 a.m., I did something else. The whole radio thing is also such a huge thing. And I think the only other times in my life that I woke up at 4 a.m. was when I was a kid for a very special treat. Sometimes I would get up with my dad super early, and we'd drive across the Bay Bridge before it was light outside and go to KFOG for the morning show. And that was always very exciting. Our little ritual afterwards would be we'd go get dim sum, and then we'd go to North Beach and have a coffee at Cafe Trieste. Well, he would have coffee and I would have steamed milk. And then we would go across the street to City Lights bookstore. So even as a 7-year-old, I kind of knew that was all freaking cool. But back to the kind of Dharma trickster aspect. Another wonderful thing has been sharing retreat time with my dad. And I think one of the first retreats we sat together, it was here at Spirit Rock. And before the retreat started, we were down at the Gratitude Hut and looking at the pictures of the different teachers. And we got to Buddha Dasa, and my dad was telling me about when he went to see him and how enthralled he was by what Buddha Dasa was saying. And of course, it's very hot and sticky in Thailand. So every few words, when Buddha Dasa would gesture or move his arm, there'd be this loud, like suction sound. So we had a little laugh about that. And then later, during the retreat, I was having a particularly kind of fraught sitting period, and I opened my eyes for a little while. And I saw something like moving out of the corner of my eye. And I looked across, the sea of everyone meditating, and my dad was miming the suction sound with his arm. And of course, I, broke out into laughter and had to leave the hall. But it really did reset my whole retreat for me. So it really shook me out of things. That's the trickster in action there. And then I have had the chance on a few occasions to sit a retreat where my dad was the teacher. And one in particular that I remembered it was over the Halloween, Day of the Dead type period of time. So we're doing a lot of death and dying rituals, and of course it was my dad, so a lot of haiku. And he was on one of the last nights of the retreat, he was giving the Dharma talk, and it was on impermanence. And I just remember him there in his chair with his shawl and his furry head. And then, we all sat there with our eyes closed for a little bit, and I happened to open my eyes a little early. I guess my dad had to cut out early that night. And it was just so striking because I opened my eyes and there was just his empty chair and his shawl there. And it was just such a tender moment of feeling that impermanence. And also just feeling so held by his expression of wisdom and love in this world. And I think not just for me as his daughter, but for so many of us, I think there's just this special little place in our hearts where the West wisdom lives, where something inside of us he's inspired. And I say that as well because growing up in the Bay Area for my entire life, really, if I meet someone at a party or just in passing at the grocery store, if they find out I'm Scoop Nisker's daughter or Wes Nisker's daughter, whether they know him from radio or from teaching, they get this little twinkle in their eye. They get this special, unique little twinkle. And it really feels like they're kind of radiating out that part of themselves in that twinkle. And it almost sometimes feels like they're reflecting my dad out at me through that twinkle. So here is to the Wes Scoop Nisker twinkle in all of us that we can all carry within us. I love you so much, Daddy. I know Joseph has not convinced you the truth of rebirth, but I'm sure I did something extraordinary in a past incarnation to end up with you as my dad. So, yeah, and now we have a break, so you can take your Wes twinkle and go tinkle. It was all leading up to that. But come back for more. We have Nina Weiss performing.
Hello out there, Pacific Hats. This is Scoop, and I'm here to remind you that it's almost April Fool's Day. And yes, I'm talking to you, fool. And the first thing I have to say is that you will live forever. April Fool! Yes, friends, it's time to celebrate the most important holy day of them all, the one honoring all humans, regardless of color of skin, religion, or nationality, because, Lord, what fools we mortals be. To check it out, just do what I did and look at yourself in the mirror. There, you're likely to see someone very serious about his or her life, as if your personal story were somehow significant in the grand scheme of things, in a universe containing billions of galaxies. And there you are, full of big plans and self-improvement projects, and you try hard to look dignified in spite of your protruding ears and nose. And then look a little closer and behold, a member of the animal kingdom, not that far from the jungle, really, still ruled over by instincts that you are hardly ever aware of, a mid-sized mammal trying to walk around on two legs and still look cool. And now gaze a little deeper and notice the outline of your skull, that big bone waiting there to make its full appearance after the wind blows your face away. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. Of course, humans are even more foolish as a group than we are as individuals. One of us alone is a fool, but get two or three of us together and it's a disaster. It's a Three Stooges movie, an impractical joke. Consider that we have completely overpopulated this planet with humans, so some of you will have to go. And we should have figured out long ago that everybody's got their own problems, so the more people there are, the more problems there will be. It's so obvious. Of course, a prime example of our collective foolishness is global warming, with all of us driving around in our private boxes of steel and plastic, thinking we're so smart, revving our engines vroom, vroom, as we burn up millions of years of the accumulated energy of the sun in one choking bonfire of the vanities. In short, we're starting to cook ourselves. And would you like fries with that? Of course, if you need further proof of our collective foolishness, consider that millions of Americans voted for Donald Trump to be the leader of the free world. I rest my case. And the election of Trump is a sure sign that we're in the late days of empire, with the buffoons in charge calling to mind the Emperor Nero, chubby and crazed, fiddling while the world burns all around him. So considering the situation, I suggest that we honor our collective foolishness by making April Fool's Day into a serious international holiday full of important rites and rituals. How about a 8 billion person kazoo concert? Everybody knows row, row, row your boat. We could also try a mass mooning of each other, but that might be more than the collective psyche can tolerate. The best plan, starting with a St. Stupid's Day parade, of course, is to let local communities organize an annual Fool's Confession. It would be reminiscent of the ritual that Jews perform on the holy days when everybody beats their chest and confesses that they have sinned. So on Fool's Day, we would confess our foolishness to each other and admit, let's face it, that we really don't know the purpose of this universe, or why we are alive, or what we're supposed to be doing in this life, and admit, furthermore, that all of our current knowledge is likely to be disproven and overturned someday, so that in the end we will be obliged to say, along with the Firesign Theater, everything you know is wrong. So, as part of our public fool's confession, I suggest we use the Homer Simpson forehead slapping ritual with a loud collective dope. Okay, so let's practice. Everybody get the palm of your hand ready. Okay, now, everyone who thought that maybe Trump wouldn't be all that bad, slap that forehead. Dope. Okay, now anyone who thought the Democratic Party would save us, dope. Slap that third eye. Okay, now everyone who thought the internet and cell phones would give us all more freedom and make life easier, slap that hard drive. Dope. Okay, everyone who thought that doing yoga, wearing crystals, or meditating would solve all their problems, dope. Now, one last time, anyone who actually thinks that someday they will get it all together, dope. Okay, now doesn't that feel good? Once you've accepted that you are a fool, you can relax. You no longer have to live up to some high standard of wisdom and decorum. You can also take consolation in the words of the great Taoist sage Chuang-Tzu, who said with a wink, those who know they are fools are not the biggest fools. So have a foolish day on Saturday, friends. Let your heart be full of crazy awe and wonder, and remember, on the fool's path, headed for the edge of the cliff, of course, you are free to stick out your tongue at the gods, let your hair grow wild, speak in rhyme, and stumble along without any idea of where you are going. Feel the freedom. It's a fool's paradise, and at the very least, you are fool enough to know it. And this is Scoop Nisker reminding you as well, and as always, and I am talking to you too, fool. If you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. When I was in India studying Buddhism, I couldn't help but notice that a disproportionate number of the people over there doing this practice were Jewish. And then I came back to the United States, and the first big Western meditation center was started by Goldstein, Kornfield, Salzburg, and Schwartz. Sounds more like a law firm than a Buddhist teaching collective. I think there could be a whole new ethnic group forming. The Buish people. And our sacred mantra, Om Shalom. Peace, 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 peace. Of course, in the Bush religion, the wisdom would be transmitted primarily through the use of knock-knock jokes. You laugh. But the disciple comes to the master and says, and the master answers with the number one spiritual question, who's there? If you don't get the joke, you have to be reborn over and over again. So be here now. Almost, you were just right on top of it.
The incomparable. Who invented Wes Nisker? That. All right. I'm doing a short-ish improv about Wes. I'm Nina Wise. I do improvisational performances, and really honored to do one for Wes. So, I first heard Wes the way you've heard about hearing Wes for the first time, which is his voice. And it was the 60s, and Wes was the radio journalist on KSAN Radio. But KSAN Radio, which maybe you haven't heard yet, was the radio station that played the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead and the Jefferson Airplane and the Quicksilver Messenger Service. So we were all getting stoned, listening to KSAN, and then Wes would come on and tell us what was going on in the world. We listened to him every single day, and he was the spokesperson for the entire 60s revolution. He was in Berkeley, I was at Santa Cruz. We were all listening to Scoop Nisker, and every day he would tell us what was going on in the world. That's how we knew what was going on in the world, was because of Wes's voice. He was the hero to so many of us as he guided us through this revolution, which was about peace and love and harmony, make love, not war. He was the one kind of bushwhacking the way through the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement, and we were just following in his footsteps. And then I met him at a party. Years later, there he was, Wes Scoop Nisker, with that bushy black hair. I didn't know he had bushy black hair. You listen to the radio, you don't know what people look like. You just know their voice, fresh air. And then you see them and you're, that's not, that was the person, the voice, that was exactly a picture I had in my mind, but there he is, he's pretty great. I like how he looks. And there we were at a party. And he was surrounded by women who were having the same experience I was having. There's that voice, decades later. But by then, he had sort of wasn't doing that radio show every day. He was going around the world, sitting at the feet of Who'sy and Whatsy, trying to become awakened. We didn't call it that then. That's newer. I think we called it enlightenment then, back then. So then we became friends, and he would have birthday parties at his bungalow in Oakland, the Craftsman Bungalow. And for his birthday on December 21st, we would all gather in the bungalow in the living room and have a few shots of whiskey and read poetry. That's how Wes would always celebrate his birthday. We would all bring poems and then crowd around, have a few snacks, dip, guacamole, and we would read poetry to each other, because Wes was starting to understand, or maybe he had for a long time, that if you're going to change the world, and it did need changing, it still does, sort of depressing thought, you had to do it through poetry. And so we would sit around kind of shoulder to shoulder, and someone would read a poem. It wasn't just Rumi and Mary Oliver and Hafiz. It was like all kinds of poets you'd never ever heard of, or I hadn't, anyway. And someone would read, and someone else would say, well, that reminds me of this poem, and they would read, and someone would say, well, that reminds me of this poem, and they would read, and we'd all be sitting there with our poetry books, reading poetry to each other for Wes's birthday. Then we began teaching together at Spirit Walk. So I would teach and give the Dharma talk, and people would have been sitting and following their breath for hours and doing that slow lift, carry, place, walk. And there's, sometimes we even had to do that with the fork, lift, carry, open, place, chew. So they were very vulnerable. And I would take my seat. You do feel a bit like Florence Foster Jenkins. You do, and I won't go, that's about me. And I would talk about how really when you deepen into your meditation practice, and your heart opens, grief can surface in the heart, and we open the heart to the layers of our own pain that may have remained hidden. And really, I learned from Tsoknyi Rinpoche that being a bodhisattva means having the courage to open the heart to our pain, and the pain leads us to our suffering, and a broken heart is the gateway to heaven, and people would be reaching for their handkerchiefs and weeping, and then Wes would say, by the way, you're just made out of sawdust. If you think about the world at large and the universe at large, you realize that the calcium is made out of your bones, and you're just part of the earth. And don't take yourself so seriously. We were like really great partners for each other, because I would be able to deal with the weeping and the crying and the opening and the heart and the loving, and then Wes would say, "Okay, think. The universe is billions and billions and billions of years old, and you're just this tiny speck." It was a very satisfying partnership. Then we went to Prague together for a big conference, and one of the people there His name was Milan Kozelka. And he was a performance artist, a Czech performance artist who did protest performance. Things like walking up a river and having it videotaped in order to protest the dictatorship of communism. And for that, he was arrested, thrown into jail, and beaten. He also picked up garbage in the park, which was also considered such a radical act that he had to be arrested. So he loved Wes, and he scooted us off to Karlovy Vary, the home of, not the home, but the vacation spot with mineral springs of Lenin and Tchaikovsky and Dvorak and Rilke. And Wes and I would promenade together down the tiled walkway with 13 mineral springs spouting. You would carry a little cup and dip it into the spring or the fountain and drink this really vile tasting, healthy mineral. And then in the evenings, well, we did the radio show and we did the performance, and in the evenings we'd go to this outdoor cafe up in a park, and we would sit with Milan Kozelka and his intellectual Czech friends and the performance artists, and Wes would carry on, and we would drink becherovka, a sweet liqueur made from 13 herbs that made you laugh. And there Wes was being honored by this sort of entire movement, international movement of people who understood, like he did, that writing poetry and reading poetry and walking up the river and meditating all were of the same flavor. And that if you're going to change the world, if you're going to go out and make the news your own, you had to understand the confluence of the opening of the heart through the meditation and the seeing the universe in its grand scale and your own speckness inside of it. And at the same time, in the center of that speckness, you yourself were a visionary because you understood you could recite poetry and you could meditate and you could close the heart and you could sing and you could dance and you could tell a joke. And that's what it meant to be human. Wes has a kind of illness, Lewy body, that creates a condition of mind that gives rise to hallucinations. I asked him once how it was going. And he was living in his apartment by the lake. And he said, well, I've had this hallucination. He said he was sitting in his room in his apartment by the lake, and he was teaching people how to breathe. And they weren't following his instructions. Breathe in, breathe out, and they were not following. He couldn't, why? And then a moment later, he'd be in his room by the lake, looking out at the tree and the wind, moving the leaves. And then he'd be sitting in a room with all of these students giving precise, clear, wise, and funny instructions about breathing, and they wouldn't be following his instructions. And then he'd be in his room with the tree and the leaves. And I said, how did you manage that? And he said, I watched and I waited. I knew one of them would establish itself as the real reality. I thought, oh, that's a mindfulness teacher with Lewy body. Wes has been guiding us all these years. I would call him Wesky. I call him Wesky. I have some drama, Sturmendrang going on, and he could hear it in my voice. I'd say, my life. There'd be a slight pause, and he'd say, Dukkha. And suddenly the whole thing would evaporate. And then he would call with his own, and I say, Wes, Dukkha. Wes has been my friend and my guide and my co-teacher and person I could turn to. Dukkha, he'd say, and then we'd laugh. And now, this person who has taken us for so many decades through his own original manifestation of language and heart and teaching and breath and meditating and traveling and performances and poetry and insistence on originality despite it all. Now he needs us to pay our tribute. He needs our help. Let's all rally round, because as Jack said, we're going to hold each other now through this. As those of us who have spent decades together are walking towards the edge. Our backs are hurting. Sometimes we fall. Our minds are not quite remembering everything, but knowing everything. So, thanks. Next up is Will Kabat-Zinn, a friend of Wes's who has been his co-teacher, and I think Wes has been a mentor to him, so really honored to have Will give his presentation.
That was so beautiful, you know. So when Rose called me and asked if I wanted to come and celebrate Wes's birthday, that was an easy yes. And I haven't known Wes for 50 years. Not close. But I want to there are two things I want to say to you and to all of you. Wes, I remember when I was in the teacher training here, and then I came to Yucca Valley. It was like the first retreat I sat in on. And you said, you want to take a walk? And we took a walk out into that beautiful land out there. And I remember more than anything the feeling, which was just warmth. And, you were teaching that retreat. I was just there. And it wasn't just warmth. There was a quality, and I can hear it in other people's reflections. This quality of just not placing yourself anywhere. And it had a unique feeling to it. I can remember it now. And of course, felt that throughout the years with you. Very consistent. You asked me questions and were interested. It was just, no ego. Are we allowed to say that in the meditation center? No. Didn't you? And that's like when I was thinking about what to say, is that quality is very consistent. Even though I didn't even know what a big personality you were, in San Francisco. But that's a really amazing thing to stay aligned with just over all these years. So I want to tie that because I was also in preparation. I actually looked back at some YouTube clips of you, some of them we saw today. And we've taught together. And so I've received your Dharma many times. And a few things strike me, but one is you're so funny and so incisive and so fast that as I was watching this morning, I thought, every one of us should stop the tape after each thing you say and contemplate it for like 10 years. Really. Like, any of us who have been, have great reverence for the Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse on the foundations of mindfulness, right? Which is like the core practice we do here. And how about all the stuff about anatomy and the death contemplations and the elements? There's one clip of you, it didn't get played today, chanting the periodic table. But you only did the beginning of it. And I was like, we should be doing that, Like, it's powerful. I think sometimes, I'm glad you're alive still, because sometimes we only recognize what people really are giving us after they die. Like how deep it really is. And it's like, oh, maybe we should go back to that. But maybe we don't have to wait, And I think that's kind of great. We're gathering together like this to celebrate you. You've given us a lot. And I feel like that understanding of us as nature that you transmit is the essence of selflessness. That's what are we teaching here? And that was present in our first little walk in Yucca Valley. Not as a story or a joke, but just as you. Yeah. So thank you, Wes. I love you. It's such an honor to celebrate you and to be here with all of you too.
So what a great moment to really feel ourselves as not ourselves and totally ourselves at the same time, part of nature. And in that vein, we'll have a presentation on video by Joanna Macy.
Happy birthday, Wes. Folks, my name is Joanna Macy, and one of the happiest things I did in my life were workshops with Wes at Spirit Rock. A number of years we did that, a week or 10 days at a time. The fun we had, the surprises we fell into, the rewards we felt, was one of the greatest in my life. And now I'm so happy that I will be reminded of them by this book as well, that you have a chance now to order and buy, Being Nature, and of Wes. And I'm so pleased that my blurb is on the cover as well, testifying the fact that when will you find a book on science that is so personal, or a book on meditation that is so funny and forgiving? I'm so pleased that this little video is being made by Dan Siegel, psychiatrist I met with Wes when he stopped by our workshop at Spirit Rock. And it's just perfect that it's at his hands that I can, this moment comes together.
I forgot to mention, just assuming everybody knows, and maybe everyone in this room does, but Joanna Macy, for those of you who may not know, or I know there are a lot of people on Zoom too that I've not said hi to. Hi, everybody. So Joanna Macy is one of the founders of eco-philosophy, eco-dharma, kind of combining all these wisdom teachings with a relationship to nature, to the land, to our true home. So what a great tribute. Next, now we're having some music. Teja Bell is old friend of Wes's, has also taught with him. He's a musician, and he's going to play one of the songs that he and Wes wrote together.
Greetings, everyone. Just such a delight to be here with you today and celebrate my dear brother, my fellow Coyote brother, as Marianne says. And over the years, it's just been so much fun to to teach the long retreats and the short retreats and the day longs that Wes and I have done. Sometimes we call it the Tao and the Dharma, because I'll offer some Qigong and some Qigong Taoist wisdom along with our beautiful Buddhist wisdom as well. So one of the things that Wes and I always do is we always sing. And generally it's at the end of the retreats that we have the opportunity to sing and to celebrate, at the end of a cycle of practice and so on. So this one, we brought together the beautiful music of John Lennon, and in the form of Come Together. Many of you, I'm sure everyone knows this, but we have some unique lyrics, right, Wes? So does everybody have a copy of it? So this is definitely a sing-along, and really want you to invite you to raise your voice and sing along with this. I get to bring the Stratocaster this time. Usually it's an acoustic guitar, but... Here come the Buddha, he come walking up slowly. He got Sangha eyeball, he won holy roller. He take each step mindfully. Got to be awakened, he just do what he please. He wear no shoe shine, he got earth-dyed garments, he got mudra finger, he send love and kindness. He said, I'm in you, you're in me. One thing I can tell you is you got to be free. Come together right now. Right, Wes? He bagged one more, he got parameters, he got full awareness, he won meditator, he got feet crossed above his knees. Hold you in his presence, you can feel total ease. Come together right now, mindfully. All right, sing with me. Na 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 na. Well, he dedicated, he said, early morning he got muddy water to plant lotus flowers. He said, one and all, they enter be. Got to be the real thing, 'cause it's inside of me. Come together right now, mindfully. Come together right now, mindfully. Come together right now, mindfully. Hey, brother. Thank you.
Musical offering, this one from Kevin Griffith. And we didn't talk a lot tonight, this afternoon, about Wes's songwriting, but he was a consistent and great songwriter. This will be our final event before the final event. Before the final event. You know, we like to taper off slowly here. So Kevin and Wes taught together and wrote songs together. Kevin wrote to me, he said, he helped me to get my first book published and invited me to guest edit Inquiring Mind. He edited my book, Living Kindness, but perhaps what bonded us most was working on his music together. He was the knack for writing catchy and, of course, witty Dharma songs that I've had the joy of arranging and recording for years. So, the wonderful Kevin Griffith.
It's just like way too many emotions going on. And like, what do you feel like singing? Okay, please do, because you want to sit?
I'll sit with and we'll sing with you if you'll sing by yourself when I'm done.
Okay.
Or
Yeah,
with somebody.
I'll do I actually have a number prepared.
Oh, good.
Professionally. I have the words to Buddha Blues.
You haven't, I kind of know them.
Okay, I don't know. We need a microphone. There's one there.
Is this thing on?
Yeah, it's easy. If he wants to stand.
Oh, getting old, man. Doesn't. It can swing though, right? Woke up this morning, there was trouble in my mind. Tried some meditation, but no peace could I find. Called up my guru, I asked him what to do. He said, son, you just gotta remember that first noble truth. You were born to suffer. You were born to pay some dues. And that path keeps getting longer.
when you got the Buddha blues. Now money will bring you problems and love will make you cry. Sometimes it seems like life is just a bitch and then you die. The Buddha said desire is what keeps you feeling bad. So now my desire is to end all desire. It's the worst desire I've ever had.
So it goes on forever when you got the Buddha blues.
We're all born in ignorance in a world of greed and hate. Maybe things will get better when we reincarnate. We won't have so many problems. The next life will be fine. As long as we don't get a body, Lord. As long as we don't get a mind. We'll have a few less blues, more blues, no. The path goes on forever. If you got the Buddha blues. There's no other verse.
Do I dare? Do I dare? All right, well, I'm going to do this just because nobody's ever heard this song except Wes, and he probably forgot it, which was probably wise, but it's... a bunch of years ago, I wrote a song using a line of Wes's that Dirk Richardson plays on KPFA regularly. Enough, we got enough stuff. And so eventually I thought, well, I should take, if I'm going to steal something from Wes for a song, let's see if I can do this. It should be his best line, most famous line. If you don't like the news, go out and make some of your own. If you got the news blues, bring it on home. If you don't like war, you better make a little peace. If you don't like greed, try generosity. I hear everybody complaining, say they don't like the state of the world today. But if you want it to be changing, you gotta make a little news. Yeah, it's time for you to choose. If you don't like the news, gotta make some of your own. If you got the news blues, gotta bring it on home now. If you don't like war, better make a little peace. If you don't like greed, try generosity. The television people tell me the world is filled with chaos and animosity. They never seem to see the beauty. Yeah, the lovers in the street, kissing in the sunshine. make some of your own. If you got the news blues, better bring it on home. Yeah, make some of your own. Yeah, you gotta make some of your own. Forgive me.
Now wrapping up, a couple of things, many things. We will have a birthday cake for Wes in just a moment, but because of COVID, normally we would have cake for everyone, but because of COVID, we're taking safety protocols. Also, you don't want any more sugar. No. So we're asking that you visualize yourself having the cake. Also, there's a GoFundMe campaign to help with Wes's health costs and living costs. And drama teachers, many of them anyway, don't make a huge amount of money to cover their old age. So please donate generously. He will be grateful. We will be grateful. The thing about giving is that it feels good to give. So the gift goes in many directions at once. It will bring joy to all of us to watch his that GoFundMe number go up and up beyond what the request is. That is such a joyful moment. So there's information about that out there for everybody. Please do support our beloved Wes Nisker. And thank you to all the volunteers and all the staff. We've had such a great tech crew today, managing Zoom and the sound and all of that. So thanks to everybody at Spit. Thank you. Thank you. It's been an honor to honor. Been an honor to honor. And now we have the birthday cake. Let's gather these three presenters, and then we can all have you join with us too as we sing. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Wes. Happy birthday to you.
Supposed to blow out the candles. Not yet.
It's gonna be hard.
No, I got it.
You got it? All right, look at him. There, oh, good idea.
What if I blew some wax over this way?
It's always dangerous.
The fire is always dangerous.
Fire.
We could get into that kind of repartee. We'll never get out of here.
Pretty good. I want to say thank you, everybody.
Y'all, say thank everybody. Go ahead. I really appreciate you all coming out to honor my 80th birthday. I have mixed feelings about it. But it's such a joy. I mean, I feel so full of love. I gotta squeeze my face if I don't, so I don't cry. That would make them all cry too, and really. Thank you. Thank you.